Welcome to Turning Hard Times into Good Times. I am your host, Jay Taylor, and I'm speaking to you from New York City on this, the 31st day of December, 2019. Before I say anything else, let me wish you all a happy new year, as this is the last day of 2019 and the last day of a decade. My hope and prayer for all of you is that you have a happy, healthy, joy-filled, and prosperous 2020. This show will do what we can to try to help you make that happen in 2020. I want to thank each of you for listening to this show, making it one of the more popular shows on the Voice America Business Channel. Also want to invite you to continue sending along your questions, comments, or whatever they may be, comments. Send them along to questionsfortaylor@gmail.com. Questions, the number 4, taylor@gmail.com. Also want to thank our sponsors for making this show economically viable. Certainly 2019 has been a very good year. Irving Resources, up 65% this year. Novo Resources up 57%. Great Bear Resources takes the crown at up 287%. Two other companies that just recently joined us as sponsors are more or less break even at this stage, but we're expecting big things from Gatling Exploration and TriStar Gold Resources in this bull market as it continues to go on into 2020. I've titled today's show, Making Money in Mining Stocks in 2020, Part 2. What I have chosen to do for the last two shows of this year was to interview newsletter writers like myself, who, with the exception of Bob Moriarty, are involved in the Metals Investor Forum events, the next one of those being held in Vancouver, January 17th and 18th. So last week's show was titled Making Money in Mining Stocks 2020, Part 1. This week's title, Making Money in Mining Stocks 2020, Part 2. The questions that I posed last week and will pose this week are the following. What was your most successful stock pick or two in 2019? What are your two top picks for 2020 as we enter the new year? In general, which markets do you expect will do well in 2020, and which ones do you want to avoid? Last week, we asked those questions of Bob Moriarty, Brent Cook, Gwen Preston, and Greg McCoach. At least one of the companies picked by Bob Moriarty nearly doubled following Bob's recommendation, and it is a company that I expect may soon become a sponsor to this show as well. Very exciting story there. You can listen to last week's top picks by going to jtaylormedia.com. Go to the podcast page at jtaylormedia.com. This week, which is Part 2 of Making Money in Mining Stocks, Eric Coffin, John Kaiser, Chen Lin are my guests, and I will be asking them the same questions as were asked of the letter writers last week. And since I, too, am a participating newsletter writer, in just a minute I will be passing along some of my thoughts about 2020. As soon as I finish my thoughts, I will be speaking to Chen Lin to hear where he plans to be making money in 2020. In the second segment of today's show, John Kaiser will join me. And then in the final segment, Eric Coffin will offer some of his excellent ideas about where you can make money, where he believes you're going to make money in 2020. Both Eric and John, for sure, are very much interested in early stage exploration stories, and when those stories hit, they can be really stellar performers, no doubt about that. Okay, well, here are some of my thoughts about this year, last year, and into 2020. My most successful pick in 2019 was Great Bear Resources, which is a sponsor to this show. It was my biggest winner for sure. It rose something, well, it started the year at $1.74 in U.S. money and ended just before this show began, a little earlier today, at $6.75. This is a company that still has, in my view, massive upside potential. Because only a small portion of that LP fault, where they've been just hitting some very wide intersections of interspersed with very high-grade gold and then lower grades. That has been drill tested, but only a very short distance of the, I think it's something like 18-kilometer strike length. And what is amazing is that the high percentage and virtually every hole they put down, they've been getting what they're looking for. They've been hitting gold mineralization. So it's the consistency. That's been the story throughout since I first started following Great Bear, was the consistency of hits. Very, very unusual. And with an obvious multi-million-ounce high-grade gold deposit in the making, management is planning a royalty spin-out company in 2020. I expect to hear something about that in January. If for no other reason, I want to continue holding the stocks that I own now personally, is so that I inherit a royalty company on this magnificent gold deposit, the limits of which are still being expanded. Very exciting story, continues to be, but of course with the kind of move it's made now, in percentage terms, I think there are some others that probably offer some bigger upside, and I'll be getting to that in just a moment. Much as I continue to like Great Bear, from a percentage upside potential, as I say, there are others that I think offer much better upside. So here are a couple of my top picks as we enter 2020. The first one is Sitka Gold Corp. Only 30.5 million shares outstanding, selling at 14 cents in U.S. money. That gives it a $4 million U.S. dollar market cap. Tiny, tiny, tiny company. The company has 3 exploration projects. The first, which is being drilled right now, is the Burial Creek property in Arizona, which has a small historical gold and silver resource. This is a very low-risk drill target, and if it hits good grades, as I think it likely will, because of its very low market cap, I would expect these shares to rise dramatically in percentage terms. A second project is the Alpha Gold project in Nevada. It is a Carlin-style target, which it will be tested in 2020, I think with 8 or 10 drill holes, something like that they have planned. Success on that target is certainly not as high. The probabilities of success is certainly not as high. But if they do hit a juicy Carlin mineralization with their drilling this summer, it could be a moonshot, I think, almost overnight because of this very minuscule market cap this company has. This third project that Sitka Gold Corp has, is the RC Gold property in the Yukon, which is highly prospective as well, and that will be drilled also this summer. So there's three projects that will be drilled, excuse me, by the company as we get into this year. The second pick that I am going to offer to you is Lion One Metals, symbol LIO in Canada, LOMLF in the U.S. Actually, next week, Dr. Quentin Henning, who is a geological advisor to the company, and Wally Burakoff, the president and CEO, are scheduled to come on this show jointly to talk about this exceptionally exciting story. Here are the main points I would like to leave with you regarding Lion One Metals. First, the company's project is a high-grade, near-surface gold deposit in Tahiti that is permitted for production and has very strong profit margin expectations based on previous economic work. This is on the smallish side, however, and that is the reason that up until now it has not gotten a lot of attention. But all that has changed now because Dr. Quentin Henning has convinced CEO Wally Burakoff to put some deep drill holes down under the existing deposit to test Quentin Henning's theory that Lion One's Tahiti project is an alkaline project rather than a smaller epithermal deposit. The first drill hole, put down in a 4-hole program, proved to be a success, as it not only graded 33.22 grams of gold per ton over 4.29 meters, but the type of mineralization supported Henning's alkaline theory. So I'm eagerly awaiting the results from the next 3 holes that should be coming fairly soon, I believe. Well, the significance of all of this is that what looks to be in the making is not a smallish epithermal deposit, but quite possibly a monster high-grade deposit, both at depth as well as along strike. And there's something like 7 kilometers on strike that are prospective here. Again, as I said, Dr. Henning and Wally Burakoff will be with me next week to talk about this very exciting story. So those are a couple of my picks for 2020. I could name a lot more, and I hope that you'll be joining me at miningstocks.com. This is an exciting time for the junior sector. It's a very good time to consider signing up to my newsletter and some of the other newsletter writers that are on the show from time to time. But for mine, you can go to miningstocks.com. As for which markets to look forward to and which ones that I think you should stay away from as we head into 2020, I will mention the work of Michael Oliver once more. His work, which I fully subscribe to, is now strongly suggesting a weaker dollar and very strong commodity markets in 2020. Now, just a couple of the things that Michael has talked about. With respect to the dollar index, his view was that if it fell below 97.27 at the end of this month, that would be a very bearish sign for the dollar. And in fact, right before the show began, it was selling below that level. It was at 96.46. As far as commodities go, Michael tracks the Bloomberg Commodity Index, BCOM. And Michael's number was 79.35. If it is over that number by the end of this month, in other words, in just a couple of hours from now, then that is extremely bullish for the whole commodity sector. And right now, it is significantly above. It's at 80.99. So the idea is that we're heading into a bear market for the dollar and a bull market for commodities. So both of Michael's metrics are working out at this time. Michael's logic seems strong to me when he suggests the next leg up for gold will take place when the dollar heads lower and commodities head higher, and both seem to be taking shape, just as Michael suggested right now. Therefore, as we enter 2020, I'm bullish on commodities in general, and gold shares in particular. I'm bearish on the dollar and U.S. Treasuries, although if the equity markets tank, Treasuries could also become a safety respite, at least until the markets start to worry, that there are no takers for U.S. Treasuries other than the Federal Reserve. And I would like to remind you that the Treasuries, the U.S. Treasury, the new money it needed to raise since September, 90% of that has been funded by the Federal Reserve, not by the Chinese any longer, not by a lot of the other countries that are really considered adversaries to the United States. So I think this is something to keep an eye on. Those are some of my views. On that same logic, let me tell you that I expect to talk to Alistair McLeod on January 7th about his most recent essay titled Bond Worries and Gold. Alistair believes that the dollar's days may be numbered as the world's reserve currency. Now, I know a lot of people have been saying that for a long time, but Alistair offers some very good insights, I think, into why that may happen. And he's talked about some of those recently, but I think he's also going to be talking to us next week on the 7th of January about why he fears that the U.S. Treasury may start having some real problems in terms of funding itself. And that could lead to an exacerbation of a bear market for the dollar. If the world starts to realize that the only way the U.S. can finance itself is through printing press money and nobody else wants our treasuries, or that there aren't nearly as much demand for treasuries as there is for a need to finance them, then the confidence game could kick in. And not a good scenario for sure, but it should be very bullish for gold and commodities. So those are just some of my thoughts. Let me turn now to someone who is a lot smarter than me, namely my good friend and partner, Chen Lin, to see what he's thinking about 2020. Before I say hello to Chen, though, I would like to remind you that you should go to chenpicks.com to sign up for Chen's newsletter. Chen, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Jay. Happy New Year. It's an honor to be on your radio show.
Oh, it's always an honor to have you. Are you kidding me? So listen, with the questions that we're asking all the newsletter writers, as you know, Chen, what was your most successful pick in 2019?
Well, there's a couple of, in the gold, really, my best call was to buy gold at December of last year at about a little bit over a year. I mean, at the bottom of the market, at the darkest moment of the trade war.
Uh-huh.
So December you buy. I was in future market, gold and silver. Those are highly leveraged. Obviously, I don't recommend people don't know it to get into that. But you get a big band of the money. I got into a lot of mid-tier companies, and then I got into stock options and stock options like Corp, Goldfield, Gold Resource. I mean, so on and so forth. And then you can, very liquid, which I like because I can buy for myself and my subscriber, not have too much impact to the market.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they did very, very well. So in 2019, actually has been a year that's really just producers doing well. Export juniors are not, except some very selective few juniors. Right? So it's a very interesting market. It's diverse. And I expect 2020 to change, and then people start believing gold. So there could be a lot of exciting opportunities coming.
All right, let's hear about some of them. I know that you're largely, not largely, you are in the energy sector as well as the gold sector, gold mining shares, and as you mentioned, those that have more liquidity because of the size of your clients and yourself. And and also the biotech. So feel free to name whatever you think your top pick is in any of those sectors, Chen. It doesn't have to be in the mining sector, though that's mostly what we're talking
actually,
about.
You mentioned exactly right. The biotech, actually the biggest, if you look at the biggest winner for me in 2019 during the shortest period is biotech, right? That's when Elizabeth Warren was leading in the Democratic debate. And I listened to the debate. She was couldn't explain how to pay for her Medicare for all. I feel that's the top of her, presidency. And then the biotech was down to the toilet because everybody afraid of Medicare for all. Yep. So I was buying biotech. I got like a Clovis. In 1 month, it's five-folded. It's a very big company. It's $1 billion, company. So very, very liquid. You get at $3, it's sell at $16. And also Sorrento tripled. I mean, there's so many stock doubled and tripled in 1 month. So if you buy at that moment, which I recommended to my subscriber, in 2019, you would do very well. But I think there's a lot of exciting opportunities in biotech, and I have a long portfolio, but I'm quite very interested in gold. I think 2020 should shape up to be something very exciting for gold and gold miners. Exactly what I said, because juniors are not following gold. So there's a disconnect. So once people start catching up, people start believing gold, there's a lot of room to run, okay, especially for juniors. One of those I really believe in is Sarah Pascal. I discussed that before in your radio show, right?
Yes.
They already announced the deal with Glencore, right? So basically, the reason why the deal would take so long was there was so much opposition of a Peruvian minority shareholder because they believe they sold at least $1 billion of assets for $30 million, right? So, and then the deal was negotiated when the gold was $1,300, silver was $15. So now, they should renegotiate, but Glencore still just, they vote and they got the deal done. They got the deal signed. They haven't done. They will probably close it in a month or two. The stock still trading at the CN market, the lowest of the Canadian. Once they close the deal, they will trade on TSX. That will allow the fund to own, right? Right now, only individual and then people who really understand the story, like me and you, and then our subscribers, own a lot of chunk of the share. Yeah. So, and then insider own big chunk of share. So it's the stock really doesn't present any remotely the huge valuation it can, and then they have 17-year mine life ahead of them. It's you're talking about hundreds of millions of cash flow at the current metal price. Okay, and then they were looking management. If you listen to their recent presentation, they're looking for 50-year mine life. So it's going to be one of the greatest mines in the world, generating hundreds of millions of cash flow each year and worth billions of dollars. Right now, market cap is still 100 million, right, Canadian, around that.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting. I mean, it's a very unusual story, and there's a lot of details to it, and I guess a lot of things we're still not quite clear on. The deal is supposed to close sometime very soon, I think the middle of January, right, Chen?
Yes, January, February, sometime around there, right? So we should hear more announcement coming soon, right? But you just look at it, it's heavily owned by insider, plus only not many people outside understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah. Well, I'm expecting possibly there'll be a sponsor of the show. We'll get Guy, the CEO on the company, on the radio show. Thanks to you, Chen, for finding this. You have really been. I mean, you specialize in finding deals that are sort of out of sight and therefore undervalued, and this is just another great example of many that you have. We have about 4 minutes left yet. Chen, can you tell us what are your outlooks generally for 2020? What markets do you think? I guess gold is one you think we should be in. Gold. You like the biotechs a lot. What about energy? What are you seeing in energy?
Right, and energy, I think it's a very interesting, market. Peter Lynch just came out. His topic is energy because energy was the worst in the past decade. And then before the decade before was the number one. So it became number one to number 10 out of 10 different industries. Mm-hmm. So he thinks it will bottom in a year or two. So we're getting pretty close. We got washed out. Energy got down so much. It got washed out very hard. But there's still incredible valuations in energy. Like, I own, like a stock, even I own Pan-Orin. It was trading quite close to the cash level, and then Cap Energy, there's a lot of upside within those energy space. So I'm holding, I'm holding my energy stocks, and hope for the best. I'm quite, frankly, quite optimistic with my energy portfolio as well. And I just want to squeeze in one last thing, since we're talking more about gold on the radio show.
Yes,
another company I really like is OceanaGold. Okay, I followed the stock for over 10 years. This is one of the best valuation right now. It's over $2. Okay, because of Philippine situation, the mine was forced to close, and while they negotiate the FTA with Philippine government, the reason was that it will be the first ever FTA renewal. So the Philippines takes time to work with the government, because there's 10 other mines on the way to want to do the same thing. So there's a lot of intense negotiation. So there's a delay on that. But both government and the mining industry want to have a format going forward, so they will get a resolve, right? In the meantime, even without the Philippine asset, this stock was double of what they have, because they already discovered very high grade next to their underground mine. So it could be the next Fosterville of Kirtland Lake. So the stock is over $1 billion. So it's not a junior, but it's very safe. You look at the insider purchase, it's huge, long list of insider purchases, right? So that's what I really like. And then biotech, there's quite a few, but it's pretty long list. But I put it in my Outlook. You can go to chenpix.com.
Right.
There's some outlook I put in for next year.
Okay, so people can go there and get that free of charge, Chen, and then hopefully they'll agree to sign up for your letter. But are you providing those names for some people?
Right. I put the general speaking of Outlook. I put it on the website. Yes, so people can look at it, and then talking about some company in general as well.
All right. Very good, Chen. Thank you so much for those ideas. Always a pleasure hearing what you have to say, because I know there's a lot of smoke coming out of your ears. It means your brains are working hard. You come up with great ideas. So I want to thank you for sharing them with us. Okay, Chen, have a happy New Year, you and your wonderful family, and we'll be talking to you very soon again on this show, hopefully.